Evolution or creation? Such a big question. If we look at the universe and our Earth, rich with an atmosphere, water, and life of all types, then we have to ask ourselves, where did all this come from? And this leads to the next question, looking at our own human race. Where did we come from? To truly know the answer to this question is of great importance and must impact and influence on the way in which we live our lives. So where did we come from? There are two main answers to this question. That is by evolution or by creation. Evolution is the theory that life as we know it first appeared from a situation of non-life, spontaneously, by chance, by the right elements being present in a suitable environment and then bonding together to produce the first rudimentary building blocks of life. Then over time, these simple life forms developed and evolved into new forms that eventually made up all of the life that we presently see. The theory of evolution is a very recent conception in terms of world history that came about after Charles Darwin, a British scientist, biologist, wrote his thesis, The Origins of the Species, in 1859. From observations of birds and other life forms, he formulated a theory that by adapting to the local environment, animals could transform into a new variety. He deduced that over many years, the continual transformation would lead to the introduction of new species, and had in fact been the way that all living organisms had come about. He and his colleagues developed this theory further to the point where they said that even the human species had themselves developed from the ape family. This theory was enthusiastically received by the science community, even though Darwin had made huge unsupported assumptions in his hypothesis. The theory was further presented as fact and not theory by the science community. Creation is the belief that we and all the other life on the earth was created by a supreme being, each in a fully developed form, and then placed here to live and interact with each other. These two hypotheses are diversely opposed to one another, and both claim to be correct. To know which is the correct answer is possible, and the evidence is available for us to draw an informed and meaningful conclusion. To be able to do this, we must analyze the question in more detail and define the requirements to support each side of the argument. There are two fundamental questions or parameters that must be answered, and also several supporting parameters that will provide the information to draw our conclusions. The first of the main parameters is, can life occur spontaneously from non-life, or does the original life form have to come from some external source? This is a very important statement, as having to rely on external help would contradict the evolution theory in its entirety. The second of the main parameters is, can the original life form transform or mutate into a new distinct organism or species? The mutation would have to be beneficial for the establishment of a successful new species. Other supporting parameters to the evolution theory would include evidence of a progression of life through transitional forms in the past from the fossilized remains of organisms. We would also expect to see the ongoing evidence of transitional life forms in the present living life spectrum. Another requirement would be to find evidence that modern man evolved over a long time from very basic and brutish animal ancestors. In addition to this, we would expect that the age of man would be very old to accommodate this long transformation from animals. We can now present these parameters in a table so that we can methodically review the evidence for each parameter. By observing this chart, you can see 6 fundamental statements or parameters that would be expected to be fulfilled in order to support and prove either side of the argument. The chart is divided into 2 sides, evolution and creation, and the evidence that we expect to find to support each theory is listed below them. We should now review the evidence to support each parameter in this table so that we can make an informed and credible conclusion to the question that we have been seeking. Parameter 1. Life appeared spontaneously from nothing. This is an incredible statement and the most important of them all. For evolution in its entirety, we need go no further than this, because if it is proved to be impossible, then evolution cannot occur, as it would require the intervention of some outside power to provide the initial life form. Scientists have researched the requirements and progression of living organisms and documented their findings in many books and papers. Their findings reveal that the first requirements are amino acids, which need to be in the correct amount and the correct types. The amino acids would then have to bond or link together in the correct order to form a protein. The next step is that proteins of the correct type would then need to link together again in the correct order and number to form a protein chain. The protein structures would then have to come together to form the smallest building block of life, the living cell. From here, cells of different types have to be assembled together in the correct order to form different living organisms. The way that the cells are put together is critical. They must be organized correctly to form or enable a practical life form to be produced. In order to ensure the order is correct, this requires a plan or an assembly instruction, and this is provided by the presence of DNA, which is present in every living organism. This means that in addition to the spontaneous appearance of amino acids and formation of proteins, it would also require the presence of DNA molecules to carry the genetic codes that define each organism. As you can see, this process to derive the building blocks of life is highly complicated and has proven to be a major obstacle to the evolution theory. Mathematicians have used statistics to assess the odds or chance of the correct amino acid forming, then linking into proteins, and found it to be considered impossible, or that it would take millions of times longer than the age of the whole universe. The science community have been conducting continual experiments to replicate the primordial soup theory and create amino acids. To this date, only a few have been produced, and they have not been of the correct type required for the formation of living organisms. This setback has caused many scientists to rethink their stance on evolution and to develop other theories that we will highlight later. If we look at the view from the side of the creationists, then we can only rely on information given by the scriptures. The description of creation is given in the Old Testament of the Bible in the book of Genesis. In this account, it is stated that God created the earth and the heavens and all the plants and animals that are there. What is of special interest is that the account of creation is detailed and specifies a list of the steps of creation in a precise order. The 10 stages listed over a 6-day period outline the formation of the earth and the establishment of water, land, atmosphere, and the arrival of animals of the sea, sky, and land in their chronological order. The order of stages in this list matches precisely the order of events that the scientists have determined in their hypothesis of the Earth's history. Considering that Genesis has been dated at about 1500 to 1200 years BC, long before the scientific understanding of the Earth's history, then this would lead to the belief that the writer had some special information or supreme assistance. It has been assessed that to have produced the creation list in the correct order purely by chance would have a 3.6 million to 1 possibility of being correct. Reviewing the evidence for this parameter, the requirements for the production of life from non-life has not been proved. If anything, it has been disproved as a viable fact. Parameter 2. The presence of transitional life forms in the fossil record. Since the time of Darwin, the science community has been collecting and documenting animal and plant fossils of all types. To date, millions of fossils have been registered across the world in many collections. Scientists have been eager to explore the history and development of life forms to understand progression of Earth's evolution. Apart from learning the order in which the many animal species appeared on Earth, scientists have searched tirelessly to find any fossils of a transitional form that would link different species together. To date, amongst the millions of fossils, not one credible example of transitional life has been found. Remember that this proposed transition between the species would have taken thousands or millions of years, and there should be a wealth of remains to support this theory. If we take the giraffe as an example, there has been no remains found that show the development of the characteristic long neck in this animal. The fossil records clearly show the sudden appearance of new species such as birds and mammals, etc., in fully developed form throughout the Earth's strata. Over the years, several skeletal remains have been put forward by scientists as proposed examples of a link between apes and modern humans. Famous examples such as the Piltdown Man and the recent Lucy have been found to consist of bone fragments from different animal species found at different locations that were claimed to have been discovered together as one life form. These claims have been a great embarrassment to the science community, clearly display a bias and deceitful agenda on behalf of the science community wishing to confirm their theories at all costs. In the creation theory, the remains would show the appearance of fully developed species with no transitional form. Reviewing this parameter, the evidence presented would contradict the evolution theory and support the creationist claims of sudden appearance of fully developed new species. Parameter 3. the presence of transitional life forms in the animal population of today. Remember, evolution is an ongoing and continual development and transformation of life forms, which means it should still be occurring today. If this is the case, then right now, today, there should be examples of transitional life forms linking the species together. Again, the creation theory maintains that all the different species appeared suddenly and in full developed form. This would mean that there should be no transitional living life forms. The entire animal spectrum of the present time is well known to biologists and has been documented to define all the species. There are no transitional life forms whatever that can be shown to link any of the different species together. They are all individual and separate from each other, and mostly live their lives in communities of like species. Crossbreeding between different species in order to create a new species has been found to be impossible. The horse and the donkey, which are two different but very close species, can be bred in captivity to produce a mule. The mule produced is always infertile and cannot interbreed to form a new mule species. Only like species can be crossbred, such as different types of dog or different horses, but in each case you still have either a dog or a horse. By selective breeding of dogs or horses with certain characteristics, such as short legs or a particular colour, then these features can be established to produce what is called a breed or variety of dog. In review, once more, the evidence presented does not support the evolution theory, but does align with the expectations of the creationism argument. Parameter 4. Mutations are beneficial to a life form. This is an interesting and important topic. When we speak of a mutation, we mean a life form that is modified or distorted from the original organism. For the mutation to support the evolution theory, it would have to be beneficial to the original organism so as to improve it and create an advantage that would lead to a new, improved and sustainable species being introduced. If it was not beneficial, then the new form would quickly perish and disappear. A mutation can be caused in several ways by the early embryo life form being exposed to external influences such as chemicals, radiation, or physical trauma. It is possible for these influences to damage and distort the DNA molecules which control the shape, appearance, and function of all living organisms. The full understanding of DNA was revealed in the 1950s by two scientists, James Watson and Francis Crick, who worked out the structure, form, and coding of the molecule. It was found to be of a double helix structure that contained a range of atoms that are bonded together to produce the genetic code that controls everything required to produce a living organism. By modifying the DNA, then the organism produced will also be modified. When the understanding of DNA was made, it was hailed as a great achievement by the science community and thought to be the means to reveal all the answers to man's evolution. Francis Crick went on to study DNA in great detail and was awarded the Nobel Prize for his achievements. Recently, a new biomedical research center was named in honor of him. The answers revealed in the study of DNA have not been what the science community was hoping for, as it has been found that the DNA genetic code for each species comes with a form of protection, locking the code and preventing tampering or modification. This causes the species to remain intact and stable, and thus prevents evolution. When DNA has been forcibly modified in a laboratory environment, it has been possible to produce modified or distorted life forms from the original. These modified organisms have, however, been found to be inferior to the original, with problems detrimental to their survival. Mutations made to the fruit fly have shown that the modified form always diminishes and returns to the normal original form when bred over several generations. In the selective breeding of animals to produce a certain breed of dog or horse, no new material has been found to have been added to the DNA code. To produce the different breeds, then the information required was already present in the original form of the animal. Then, by selecting examples with the characteristics desired, the genes causing these characteristics become more dominant, and the undesired genes fading or being lost over time. This effect can occur in the wild also, such as in the birds that Darwin observed. In this way, birds or other animals with characteristics more beneficial to their survival would become more dominant to the norm. This rigid resistance to change in the DNA structure has proved a major contradiction to the evolution theory and frustrated the science community. Francis Crick himself came to the realization that evolution was impossible without some external influence to bring new DNA into the equation. In desperation, Crick reviewed the theory of panspermia, which proposes that either amino acid, living organisms, or new DNA came to the Earth on comets or asteroids. He endorsed this possibility and further proposed that this may have been done purposely, directed by aliens as directed panspermia. The requirement for some external intervention to assist in man's development has further been reinforced by the ancient alien theory, which has recently become a popular topic of conversation. If you look at this theory, it requires that beings from the depths of space visited our planet Earth and either modified the life forms that they encountered on Earth or introduced new life. These aliens were capable of traveling distances measured in light years. Does this not fit the description of a superior being, thus aligning this theory with a form of creation, as it certainly does not fit the evolution model? Parameter 5 and 6. Early man came from simple animal beginnings, and also man having an old ancestry are both linked. Regarding the assumption that man evolved from animals over a long period from brutish simple beings with no language or culture has not been supported by evidence. So far, the earliest signs of man have revealed complex lifestyles with the ability to adapt and travel over great distances. Scientists say that man appeared about 250,000 years ago, yet artifacts and human remains have only been dated back to between 10,000 and 20,000 years. The whole dating of remains is another issue of controversy and has been found to rely on too many assumptions and has also produced a host of conflicting results that undermine its reliability. The earliest evidence of written language has revealed complete, comprehensive languages, with some being even more complex than modern languages. From the beginning of recorded history, man has displayed an advanced knowledge of engineering and astronomy, again contradictory to the evolution theory. The last parameter is the time that modern man has existed. The evolution theory of gradual development of man from apes would have taken millions of years, and the transitional life forms would be evident over the long date range. The creation theory of the age of man relies on scriptures to provide the information and has outlined the range of between 6,000 to 10,000 years only for the existence of mankind. Studies have been made of human DNA taken from people throughout the whole world to investigate the relationship and connection of the races to one another. The DNA samples have been able to reveal the lineage of mankind and track their progression over history. The findings show that all mankind is related to one another, and that over a prolonged time, man gradually expanded and spread throughout the world from one original locality or source. Some findings have gone so far as to say that all of mankind can trace its roots back to one family located in the region of North Africa or Palestine around 10,000 years ago. Another fact that points to the age of man being short is the size of the present world population. We can trace the size of the world population from the time of Noah, who was described in the writings of the scriptures and dated to around 6,000 years ago. Available data shows the landmark stages of human population displayed in the chart. The trend can be clearly seen with the present increase in population now expanding by 1 billion in every 10 years. If the age of man was to be as stated by the scientists at around 250,000 years ago, then the present population would be far higher and has been calculated to be approximately 24 trillion. That is 3,485 times greater than is actually present today. Even if 90% of the population died from disease and disaster, then this would still leave a population 384 times greater than we have at present. The maths alone further disprove the evolution theory and are in support of the creationist views of between 6,000 to 10,000 years being the age of man. By once more reviewing the full chart of parameters, we can now get an overall picture of the results we have discussed and determined which have been supported or dismissed. The results show that all the requirements for the evolution theory come to dead ends or serious contradictions. The evidence uncovered so far does support creationism in almost all cases, and hence the only remaining logical conclusion that can be drawn is that evolution should be eliminated as the answer. This leaves the only alternative of creation as being the logical and confirmed answer. This may or may not be the conclusion you were hoping for, but it is the reality. Would it not be better that we were created by a caring superior being and placed here to fulfill a purpose than to be merely the result of a chance appearance of life and then gradual progression of animal life to the appearance of your ancestors? Remember, this presentation cannot present all the evidence or a detailed review, which will require a great deal of reading and research. I hope this will inspire you to further confirm these results and support your own conclusions and stance on evolution versus creation. Knowing a positive answer must impact on your outlook to life and dispel any unsettling doubts. I can offer you a far more detailed review of the evidence in my website, along with other information on religious topics. Please visit my website dawninglight.info.